Hello, and welcome, my fellow survivors. Yes, you heard me correctly. I did say survivors. By the end of the speech, you would have learned what that means, if you can survive. I wanted to tell you of an evil mankind has been facing for far too long. For over 500 years, we have been victims of what I can only describe as a malevolent type of magic. I say magic because how else can so many people be so skilled as to master the art of disappearance, invisibility, and even invincibility that would seem to be overwhelming the efforts of lawmakers everywhere? And without smoke and mirrors, might I add. For over 5 centuries, we have been living our lives with the lives of our loved ones in constant jeopardy. Myself as well, as I struggle with the effects of such a crime and how it has impacted my family. Commonly referred to as modern day slavery, human trafficking parallel to kidnapping is the single greatest threat to humanity and the single most important of every human being's responsibilities. This is a call to action. It is far past the time for us to understand the gravity of the human trafficking crisis, what has been allowing this crime against mankind to exist, and what we can do to help end human trafficking everywhere. Allow me to give you a brief history lesson to wake you up and stretch your brain cells. 1525. 1525, the first slave voyage from Africa to the Americas, according to Becky Giovannoni and Amber von Schnowitz's article, The History of Human Trafficking. 12.5 million slaves will be sold or traded around the world, 10.7 million of those to the Americas. From the mid-1800s to the early 1900s, the trafficking of Chinese immigrants, most of them women, was a very lucrative and thriving illegal business operation. As early as 1899, the trafficking and enslavement of white European women provoked worldwide attention, leading to the International Agreement for the Suppression of White Slave Traffic, or the Mann Act, to be signed as the first international agreement on human trafficking. After reviewing this information, it is easy to understand how trafficking and kidnapping affect us all, including our children. However, how many of us understand that this is not just history, but a problem we still face today? An article from the website Woman at War reads as follows. Make no mistake, the buying and selling of people, especially children, for sexual acts occurs today. 300,000 children are at risk of sexual exploitation in this country. The average starting age for a child victim is between 13 and 14 years of age. I should mention that the kidnapping and trafficking of adults and children are not limited to the intent of sexual exploitation, but other laborious services as well. You might ask, how can such a crime continue to be an issue? In the age of technology, it is surprising that so many people can just disappear. There have been many laws passed in an effort to prevent human trafficking. The Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act, the Sex Tourism Prohibition Improvement Act, and the Child Sexual Abuse Prevention Act, just to name a few. The problem is not what is stated in the previous mentioned article by Women at Risk, which writes, the law often lags behind technology. No, this is not the problem. The truth is contained in one word: desire. There's a movie called Abducted in Plain Sight by Skye Borgman, a true crime documentary that shows how far people are willing to go to satisfy their desires and hide their secrets. It shows also how a lack of desire in our government to protect us can cause continuous harm to families and friends. But I digress. Yes, desire is the root of the problem. The desire of immoral human beings to use people against their will to meet their own sexual or criminal wants. The desire of greedy people who seek to profit from such a demand by kidnapping, coercing, or threatening people of all races and ages to be sold to the highest bidder. Finally, there is the lack of desire for us as humans to take up arms and proactively combat this offense to human existence. Anika Anna's article, Kidnapping versus Human Trafficking, puts it like this. Human trafficking is spreading so quickly because of its low risks and high profits. Every year, human trafficking produces billions of dollars in profits. According to statistics by the website Wise Voter, California has the highest trafficking cases in the U.S., with 1,334 incidents, yet less than a third of those were actually reported. There was no number listed for amount of arrest on the site. Paula Cornell, writer of the article Love Justice International, says, "It is extremely difficult to conduct accurate surveys on human trafficking as it is one of the most underreported crimes. It is reasons like these that would make the public believe that the offenders of our human rights are invincible, which is not true." To finally put an end to trafficking everywhere, we must first understand why it hasn't been stopped anywhere. As mentioned earlier, it is high in profits and offers little risk. However, in many places, authorities refuse to identify these crimes as trafficking cases. Because of this, many offenses are not prosecuted under the appropriate trafficking statutes. An added obstacle is that a lot of survivors don't speak out through fear of retaliation. And did you know that in many jurisdictions it is said that for the protection of the survivors, they must be arrested? According to an article by the National Institute of Justice, law enforcement has a particular challenge in identifying labor trafficking offenses, and labor trafficking victims are unlikely to report offenses to law enforcement. There has been a lack of institutional support or infrastructure to fund trainings to improve the investigation and prosecution of cases of human trafficking. In order to completely eliminate trafficking everywhere, we must do what we did in cases like Relisha Rudd. Only let's not wait a month before we say something about someone we love missing. There was a public outcry. Everyone knew who she was. We should be hounding lawmakers and starting movements like Traffic Lives Matter. Now there's a reason to march on Washington. We searched for one man who was said to be hiding in caves and had multiple lookalikes, Osama bin Laden. We found him and eliminated him. His family member's fortune was just as dark, if not darker. We searched and found one man, but we can't locate hundreds of thousands of missing persons? Sounds like this is a problem of priorities. This begs me to ask the question, what are we doing? What are we doing with this information? What are we doing about this information? Most importantly, how do we intend to eradicate, not prevent, this ongoing attack against the human species by the human species? Viewing the Amber Alerts we all receive on our phones for half a minute before scrolling Facebook or making a TikTok is not enough, as the vehicle described in the alert has probably left the town it was last seen in, and quite possibly has stopped at your favorite fast food place. Turning a blind eye may make them invisible to you, but invisible does not mean inexistent. The crime against humanity anywhere is a crime against every human everywhere. Any of us can be taken at any time, anywhere. That is why, for now, we are all survivors. The time to act is now. Seek to understand the weight of this crisis, what we are doing to allow it to continue, and what we must do to erase it from the face of the earth. Thank you.